So if you've been meditating with a sort of insider mindfulness focus on the breath or on body sensations or on something like that, this is totally different. And what we're trying to do with this entire series of practices, which we'll start tonight with forgiveness, and then next week we'll move into metta or loving kindness, which I kind of spoke about the arc of the class last week, is we're trying to create positive energy. We're trying to open the heart. We're trying to let go of negative habits of mind, destructive habits of mind and emotion. And we're doing it basically in a very direct way by using all of the faculties of our mind. So we have basically three major things that we can do with our mind. Okay? We can think in words. In other words, say phrases to ourselves. We can think in pictures, do visualization, and we can generate actual emotions in the body. By using the first two things, we can actually generate emotions in the body. Okay? So we're going to use all three of those things to the extent that each of you can do all three of those things in all of the practices in this class. They're all going to rely on those three things. If you have difficulty with one or even two of those, everybody here should be able to say phrases to yourself. Okay? Everybody can do that, right? You can sit there and say phrases to yourself. Now, with those phrases, you can also visualize. And most people can do visualization. Not everybody, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Some people can do like absolute perfect 3D Technicolor visualization, and then they can get it moving and do animations and do all kinds of stuff. And some people are very visual. Some people, it's sort of vague and fuzzy and black and white and out of focus and comes and goes. It's fine. That's still doing visualization. Nobody's grading you on this at all. So any visualization at all that you can do is useful. Excuse me. Then the third level of this is generating emotions in the body. Okay? So, just for example, say to yourself in your own mind, there's a puppy in the middle of the room. Okay. Could everybody do that? Okay, everybody can do that, right? Now, visualize a puppy in the middle of the room. Okay? Can everybody do that at least vaguely? Like, I mean, I don't see a clear, I couldn't tell you what kind of dog it was, okay? But I could see vaguely a puppy in the middle of the room visualizing it. Okay, can everybody do that? Now, look at the puppy and feel what you feel if there was really a puppy there. Now, do you feel even the subtlest sense of a smile or warmth, or maybe you don't like dogs and you feel a little bit how'd that one go? Can people like get a subtle sense of a smile or well-wishing to the puppy? Okay. So you just did all three of these things, or maybe you just did two of them, or maybe you just did one of them. But that's what we're talking about. Just it's a very simple capacity. And we're going to apply that capacity to all of these practices to generate the same kind of positive energy that we incrementally did for a couple of moments to this invisible puppy that we conjured up together. And the core practice of this is called metta, M-E-T-T-A, which is a Pali or a Sanskrit word. It's an ancient Buddhist practice, and it translates as loving kindness or loving friendliness or well-wishing. And this is sort of the inherent positive attitude that we want to carry around towards ourselves and towards the world. An inherent baseline of well-wishing, of friendliness, of positivity. It's a good thing to have as a baseline in your life. Doesn't mean that other things may not arise, but that's a nice place to just live from and then come back to. And unfortunately, many of us don't live from that place. Our baseline is more fear or depression or anger or guilt or shame or something like that, or at least partly that. So it's nice to increase the amount of metta. But before there's metta, sometimes there's a holding on to bad stuff that we've done that we don't feel good about, and then we start to feel like maybe I don't deserve metta. And this could be conscious or it could be unconscious. That because we maybe harmed somebody else or harmed ourselves, or even been harmed by others and then taken that on as we deserved it. And this could be, very, very early in life. There's some kind of sense of, no, I don't get this. I'm not okay enough to have that positive. So it can be very helpful to practice forgiveness. It's a way of opening up the space for metta. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And there's 3 directions or vectors of forgiveness. The first is forgiving ourselves. Forgiving ourselves for the things that we've done to harm ourselves and the things we've done to harm others. Like giving ourselves space that, well, okay, I wasn't perfect. I did stuff in my life that I regret. And letting go of the sort of negative feeling about myself. I may have done actions that weren't good, but that doesn't inherently make me a bad or undeserving person. And a lot of what forgiveness is about is separating the person from the action. So inherently, we all have positive nature and we all have nature that's more harmful. We all have both of those, right? We all have, a human heart, and we also have a reptilian brain down here, the base of the skull. The reptilian brain is up to all kinds of stuff that we either can sort of direct and work with, or sometimes it just comes out and it does stuff that's really destructive and not good. So we did that. That doesn't mean that we're a bad person. It doesn't mean we don't deserve love or we don't deserve positive stuff in our lives. But we can take it that way. And the same with how we look at others. So forgiveness is a way of kind of putting it back that, yeah, we don't condone the action, but we don't condemn the person. So the first vector of this is forgiving ourselves for the stuff that we've done, either to ourselves or to others. The second is asking, well, I'm not even sure what order I put these in because it's arbitrary. We forgive others for the harm that they did to us. So we've all been harmed. And hanging on to that and not forgiving people actually is punishing ourselves for what somebody else did. Because we're the ones who suffer when we're hanging on to something. We're not really getting anything in terms of the other person. They may not even be alive anymore. They may not even be in our lives anymore. They may be gone. But we're still hanging on. I'll never forgive you for that. And then who's that really hurting? Is that hurting you that I'm not forgiving you, or is it hurting me that I'm carrying that around? Well, really what forgiveness is letting go of the harm we're doing to ourselves for what somebody else did. And then the third vector is asking others to forgive us for what we did to them. So none of this is in real life. None of this is that in any way, shape, or form is any of this asking or requiring you to get on the phone or email or whatever with somebody that you either want forgiveness from or want to ask for forgiveness or offer forgiveness, etc., etc. What you do with this in your real life is completely separate. This is a meditation practice that frees up energy. Then you may or may not decide to actually manifest that in your life. And the purpose of this is not that you do that. If you do it, it's fine. But you are in no way, shape, or form required to do that. This is about opening our own hearts and freeing up our own energy. It's not about what happens in relationship, because it's a meditation practice. So if it leads to that, if it leads to a genuine impetus to do that, great. It may not. You may find that, what somebody did to you is you absolutely would never want any contact with them ever again. And that's appropriate. And forgiving them is for you, not for them. They don't ever need to know. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's important to know that there's no onus here to do anything. This is a practice. Yeah, Jennifer.
Well, can you give some guidance as to how it feels to forgive somebody? Inside, I can sort of manifest the feeling of forgiving myself, but it's like, if there's somebody who's done something pretty horrible to me, what does that look like?
Well, what it looks like is you do the practice, okay, and then you see what happens. Okay. So don't try to get to the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay, get engaged with the process and see where it takes you. And I think it's really important to underline here that this is a process. So you're going to be doing this for at least a week, and it might be a month. And part of what the phrases are, and we'll show you the phrases in a minute, is, and if I can't forgive you fully now, may I be able to in the future. Or if you can't forgive me fully now, may you be able to in the future. That we're allowing that this is a process, and that it may not happen all at once, and that it may be too big to happen except over a period of time and in stages. Sometimes people revisit this stuff like every year or something, like there's some major thing that happens, so they'll come back to it periodically and work on it for some period of time, a few meditation sessions or a week or two, and then they're kind of like, okay, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And then a year later, they come back to it and work on it again, and then they get a lot deeper with it. So it can be like that. So it's a really important question, but you're going to answer that question for yourself.
Okay.
I'm just going to encourage you to engage in the process. Okay. So, Tunde has written the 3 phrases on the board, and I'm not sure where we can put them. Now, I've got them on paper, and everybody's going to get an email with these, and you can print it out and use it at home. So, it's very important to understand that you can... You've turned yourself into an easel.
It's okay. She's never going to forgive you for this.
We could put it over by the Buddha. The Buddha could hold it up. That you can customize these phrases in your own words. Yeah.
There's a glare.
It's glary.
There's a glare.
It might need to be more vertical.
Yeah.
Um,
How about here? But then, can you see it?
Well,
Not
if-
everybody's
if
gonna
you
see it.
move.
Yeah.
I don't know.
well, hold on.
You just
hold
want to
on.
read them, and then we don't have to worry about it.
Well, you're going to be meditating with them.
Oh.
So,
Maybe on the other side.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
oh, that's a good idea. So you can customize these phrases at home. They're going to come in a Word file, and you can create your own wording. And you can even add in specific things. So you can make the wording specific to a situation, or you can make the wording general and then visualize the specific situation. You can visualize the particular person using the imagery part of your mind. So some combination of the words and the image and the visualization, and then you're generating a feeling. So feel free when you get these in your email to customize them. Some people, 1, 2, or 3 of these is much more impactful than others. You know, it might be that what's big for you is forgiving yourself. What might be big for you is asking for forgiveness for something that you've done. Or what might be big for you is trying to forgive somebody for something that they did to you. Or it might be 2 or 3 of them. We're trying to open up energy. We're trying to open up the possibility of metta, of well-wishing, of caring an attitude, and a feeling of goodness that we can then increase. So this kind of meditation is work. This is a much more energizing and effortful kind of meditation than just sort of closing your eyes and coasting along with the breath. This takes effort. But it's also very powerful. Because it takes effort doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. It's very powerful. There have been people in this group who've started with this and it's changed their life. Just to sit there and say phrases and do visualization and open up to the possibility of forgiveness has changed people's lives. You don't have to wait for the angel of mercy to come down and do it for you. You can do it for yourself. It's pretty cool that we have that capacity. But it does take effort because you're staying really focused on saying phrases, on visualizing, and on feeling. And again, if you can't do the feeling part, fine. You can do phrases. And then try to generate images that go with the phrases. Either of the person, or of the event, or of yourself, or of whatever goes along with what your particular content is with one of these 3 things. You can just do one at a time. You could try all 3 in a given meditation session. You got to find what's appropriate for you, what's relevant for you. Hopefully sometime over the week you'll try at least all 3 once. Now you don't have to go through an encyclopedia of your entire life and find everything that you ever did to anybody and forgive yourself for it and ask them for forgiveness, and then find everything that somebody ever did to you. Okay? I mean, we would be at this for the rest of our lives, and we still wouldn't get done. You know, the kid in 3rd grade that you stuck gum under their chair because you didn't like them and then they sat on it. You know, like, I mean, come on. So don't try to get encyclopedic and catalog everything that you could think of. Go for the things that you know in your life are in your way now, that are still there. And when we do the sharing next week about this, you do not have to divulge the content. You only have to divulge the process of your meditation and how it went, that we can share that and help with that. You will not be required in any way, shape, or form. You can if you want, but you are not required to divulge the content of what went on here in terms of what you're forgiving yourself or asking for forgiveness or forgiving others. So don't worry about that. You're welcome to, but you're not at all required to, and it's not necessary to learn how to meditate to do that. Because some of this is deep and personal and powerful. If you don't want to share it, you absolutely don't have to.
And we might stay with one person or event for a few minutes, or it just depends how it's impacting us.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you may stay with one person or event for the entire week, or even longer.
You laid out the 3 phrases: visualization and emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a specific direction for each of the 3 scenarios? Is that a instruction for the first phrase, for instance, about forgiving myself? Is that, I guess I'm asking, is that a useful instruction, or is that related to this?
I'm not totally sure I'm getting what you're asking, Jude.
Well, if I were to do the first phrase, I forgive myself, that first phrase, with the phrase in mind. Obviously I'm doing a phrase, and I'm also doing a visualization and the generating emotion, the 1, 2, 3 that you
Yes.
gave us before you exposed this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Those 3 things will go for every one of the meditations we do here for the entire class. It'll go for metta, it'll go for compassion, it'll go for joy, it'll go for equanimity, for gratitude. We're going to work with all 3 of those capacities: the capacity to say phrases, the capacity to visualize, and the capacity to generate feeling. And you'll get better at it by practicing with it. It'll get more and more natural to do that. It might start a little clunky, but you'll all get better at it. So yes, for all of these. So you pick something. I forgive myself for the harm I've done, and you decide, is it something I've done to myself or something I've done to somebody else? What's your rap on yourself that you don't deserve love in this life? Is there anything there? Things that you've done where you feel like, boy, I've ruined this life for myself. I've done this, and boy, I'm not getting out of here. I don't deserve a good life. If something like that's there, that's number 1. Or it may be something less trivial that's sort of there. Maybe there's 10% of that energy that you're holding on to with yourself. It may not be that big. It may just be one little part of yourself that you think, well, I'm pretty good overall, but I did do that. Okay, you can work on that. Okay, or somebody did that. You did something to somebody else and you're holding it against yourself. And then maybe you go to number 2. Did somebody do something really bad to you? Or maybe it's happened more than once. And you can work on that. And then asking for forgiveness for the harm that we've done to others. what's really in our way. Looking at, what's really in my way here. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, sure. This practice reminds me of the basic Christian prayer, Our Father, like forgive us like we forgive those who sin against us. That many think in common.
Mm-hmm.
And some people believe that this prayer is so powerful that even just repeating if you pray or meditate.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a very subtle line here between all of these practices and certain kinds of prayer. The difference is that there is no deity or God or anything like that necessary for this to work. So, prayer is generally involving some kind of concept of deity or God, some relationship with that. And here, we're really only working with our own mind and our own heart. But the effect could be very similar. So to start with, yeah, Robert.
So, what if the problem with forgiveness is all the little things? There's a lot of them.
Pick one. Pick one and let it be an archetype. Don't try to do them all.
Okay.
Just pick one. Pick one that's sort of emblematic, and let it stand in. Let it be an archetype for all of them. I know what you're saying. It'll work.
Okay.
It'll work.
Do you have recommendations for how to brainstorm some of these things if none are coming up?
Just sit there with the intention to find one of the three that's relevant, and something will come up. It could be way in the past. It could be today. Part of this is energetic. So understand that all of these situations that we might be working with or visualizing, that it's moving energy. It's moving the energy of forgiveness in a way that isn't totally dependent on the situation. The situation can be part of it. Sometimes it can be a big part of it. And sometimes it's just finding anything just to get the energy of forgiveness moving opens us up. And it doesn't quite even matter what it is. It's just a way to get into the energy of forgiveness, of letting go, of freeing up, of opening up, of moving on. That we're moving on, letting go of things that we may not even be aware of.